What up guys, it's Dragon Ball for Life here today and I'm back with another video. Now today's video, we're back to Noble Comics once again, a video called I Listened to Goku vs. Superman Debate Part 2. This is pretty much his response to his original video that he made where he was talking about, the Goku vs. Superman fight is, there's some stuff that people don't really talk about when it comes to their fight, and there's some key issues and ideas that they forget to mention, which I do talk about quite a bit, and I have made a couple of videos on my own channel about them, just not particularly pertaining just specifically to Goku versus Superman, just in general, and that video was pretty interesting. I liked it. I thought it was pretty cool. And I had somebody comment on my comment section. It was a Superman fan saying that he left a comment on the original video, trying to refute his argument of points. And that guy was pretty cool. He was pretty nice, so I don't have any problem against him. I just thought it was like cool to see, so I went to check it out. And I didn't make a response to it because I don't know why. I just felt like he had some points, but I could have made a whole video about it. But I just don't know why I didn't do it. But he dropped out his response, which I thought was great. So I wanted to check this out. Now I have already watched the video before, so this is not going to be like a new reaction. It's just me rewatching it again with you guys and going over some of the points that he made in his response video. And I've made response videos before. It's very necessary when you're making bold claims and statements. A lot of fans are going to disagree with you and say they don't trust or whatever. They're going to just say you're wrong on this and that. So that's par for the course. So you got to be prepared to create a response for that, and that's what he did. Now before I get into this, I do want to give a big shout out to a new subscriber of mine by the name of EOMM Unaware. So big thank you to you for subscribing to this channel. Yeah, I just can't wait to get into it. So yeah, let's just get into it.
What's up everybody, Noble Comics here with part 2 of the Goku v Superman video. And I'm making this part 2 because the video kind of blew up for me. And there was a lot of comments, a lot of people who agreed, a lot of people who disagreed. And I couldn't really respond to all the people who disagreed. There's just too many comments, so I thought I'd make a video kind of going over the most common disagreements with what I said. And little recap, in case you forgot, what I did say is, in the Superman v Goku debate, something that I think is often left out is Goku's superior combat speed, Goku's superior martial artist abilities, and the fact that Superman's feats typically don't scale the way that a lot of DC fans think they do. So, this out of the way, I want to jump right into it, not take up too much time, but I want to start with, maybe not the most common thing I saw, but I want to address it outright, is people who say, like, this guy doesn't read comics, this guy's never read a Superman comic in his life, something along those lines. And I want to let you guys know, I am a Superman fan. I'm a bigger Superman fan than I am a Goku fan. I'm a huge comic guy. I write comics, I publish comics. Obviously, this is my arena, right? I know comics, okay? Trust me. The difference is that I actually read Superman comics. I don't just read one DC event and then go on Comic Vine and look at Superman Respect thread and find a bunch of one-off feats that Superman has created and then think that I know Superman without actually reading anything. Because I do read Superman comics, but I've read more than one, and I think that's the disconnect here, right? I've read the issue-to-issue Superman and actually have an understanding of his consistent character, right? Instead of just reading like events where Superman is just scaled to be as powerful as he needs to be in that event, whether it's scaled up or scaled down. So I just wanted to kind of get that out of the way and kind of segue into the next topic is we talk about Superman. What version of Superman are we talking about, right? Was a huge question because some people would bring up like Superman 1,000,000, Superman Prime, the Golden Superman, Injustice was brought up a few times, and it's like, obviously you cannot just narrow it down to just one version, right? You can't say we're just doing Rebirth Superman, just New 52, because the character is the same character for the most part throughout his 80-year life. But you can't just try and put all of them together because there are versions that are so vastly different from one another. Like, there's a version of Superman that's heavily depowered compared to, say, the Silver Age version, which is incredibly overpowered. I know technically current Superman is an amalgam of all the versions, but he's not really, right? Like, they can say that in the comics, but he's clearly not really, because the power levels are so different, he couldn't be, right?
So yeah, I just wanted him to let him go on a bit. I also want to say this. Last time I checked him out, he had a bit more subscribers than me. He had like a couple, a little bit over 200. And now when I checked it the first time, he had 1.25k, and now he has 1.33k subscribers, which is crazy. He blew up so quick and so fast. I wish I could blow up that quick. Yeah, it's weird to see that, and maybe I might be getting wrong. Maybe it was another YouTuber, but I'm pretty sure it was him. Like when I checked him out, he had like only around 200. I told you guys to go subscribe to him, and I think I did leave a link in the comment section down below for that video too. And now to see that he has this much more, he was already above me, but not by that much. This is way more. To be honest, I was a little embarrassed. I was like, shit, damn. Sometimes I see other people on YouTube and they're able to accelerate so fast, and then I'm going a little bit slower, more stagnant. But that just happens. That's just how it is for some people. Some of my older videos, I definitely think the quality was a lot lower, and it's a lot better now. I can still improve a little bit more, but there's just some things I can't really fix. But let's talk about what he was saying. He was talking about how people are saying, do you even read comics? You're just an anime fan, which is ridiculous because the name of his channel is called Noble Comics. So obviously he would be a comic book fan, and from what I saw on his channel, he has countless comic book videos. So how would he be just an anime fan if he has countless comic book videos and his channel's named something about comic books? It's like me calling my channel Dragon Ball for Life and then somebody saying, do you even watch? You're not even a Dragon Ball fan. It's like, it's literally in the title. I obviously watch Dragon Ball and I know quite a bit about it. That doesn't mean I'm going to be an expert, but it does mean that I have some expertise in it. So yeah, I thought that was ridiculous. And I do think that a lot of people that use these arguments and use these like insane feats from Superman, like he said, they themselves don't really read Superman comics. They see a couple of instances where he does some crazy feats, and they go on comic vines or these respect threads, and then that showcases these absurd feats that are not very consistent. And he does mention it quite a bit in this video. It's kind of his running theme in this video, and I agree with him. This is a running theme on my channel itself. I've talked about, if you're going to do these debates against these characters and use their feats, especially if it's high-end or low-end feats, which I will also get into that because he does talk about something like that in this video. But if you're going to be talking about that, one thing you need to take into consideration is the fact that consistency is the most important thing. If you're going to do these fights, we need to see the consistent feats, because if you're not, then we can just pick and choose the best and worst feats. And countless characters have inconsistencies where they make them sound either completely ridiculously overpowered or unbelievably weak. And those things do not correlate. It's just going to be a problem. So consistency is very important for that. And then he mentions that he used modern day Superman because those other ones, there's like so many different versions, and amalgamating them all to one is kind of crazy. And in the new one, they kind of did it because they had this whole crisis event. They have countless crisis events where basically it just reboots the franchise and the series again, and they redo the same stories again, but just differently every time. And they did it this time where there was no more going to be reboots, which, let's be honest, comic books continuity is very wonky and very inconsistent to the point where it becomes a mess, and they have to fix it one way or another. But they said at that time they're not doing it anymore, and everything that was shown throughout the previous years that was rewritten is now canon, so it pertains to this Superman. Which I guess his argument, what he's saying is, a lot of people are going to assume or make the argument that, well, this Superman has the power and feats of all the Supermen, but he states that his power level in the current comics is not equivalent to a Silver Age Superman or these other versions of Superman. And he says that yes, that technically it is, but from what is shown by feat wise, it doesn't add up, which I agree, because Superman's power, where he's at right now, he's been getting stronger, but he's nowhere near the level of power he had before in the comics. So yes, technically you can say story wise or narrative wise that he is supposed to have all the instances that happen throughout the comic book history and all of his feats. It does pertain to this one, but he also isn't on that level of the power. So I would go more based on what we see from him power wise now than just saying, well, the story narrative says this, because like I said, these writers really don't give a shit. I mean, even if you look at the Hulk comics, they did the Immortal Hulk run where the Bruce Banner became fine with the Hulks and his other personalities. Then they did the Starship Hulk run, which some people had some problem with it, and they kind of reset back his mental trauma and turmoil with his other Hulks. So it happens all the time. So I do agree with that. But yeah, let's get back into it.
So what version? Yeah, you can't really nail it down to just one. You really have to take the consistent power levels, aspects, and characteristics, and just powers in general of the character, the consistent canon, pretty much, throughout that 80-year runtime, which is not easy, and I think that's where a lot of conflict comes from. But I'm going to try and navigate that a little bit here. And the first thing is talking about the feats of Superman that do and don't matter, pretty much, because a lot of the comments were people quoting feats at me, which was like the exact thing in the video I was telling people not to do. Don't bother. There's no point. It doesn't matter. But doesn't stop them from just being like, well, one time Superman lifted up the entire universe. One time Superman lifted a book with infinite pages. And one time he did this, and one time he did that. It's like, yeah, I bet Superman has done everything because he's been around for 80 years, right? There's been, what, like 500 something million issues sold of Superman? I mean, he's done a lot of stuff over the years. How much of that is consistent with his actual issue-to-issue character? Not a lot of those feats are, right? And I'll get more into that later. But you have to look at, is this consistent, or is this plot-induced stupidity, right? Is this just Superman serving the plot because he's Superman and he has to? Which, yeah, a lot of that stuff is. And you have this weird aspect of the fan base that was at like in the same breath trying to give me some scientific numerical calculation of Superman's power, and then on the other hand completely throwing physics out the window, because they'd say something like, Superman lifted such and such tons and his striking power is such and such, and he's got a reaction speed of 1 attosecond. 1 attosecond is how fast he can react. He's got that's so fast because his fight with Doomsday was like faster than the speed of light. It's like, okay, you can't try and give me some quantifiable 1 attosecond type reaction speed and then say that their fight, this separate fight, was faster than the speed of light. Because being faster, quote unquote, faster than the speed of light is not physically possible, right? So on one hand, you want me to adhere to this actual real world physical time frame, but then in the next, you want me to throw physics out the window. It's like, at least be a little consistent.
Okay, so a couple things I want to say there. I like to let him explain a couple of things and go into some of the topics that I think are interesting. Okay, so for the first thing about the whole fans, he told them not to do this and they still, sent it. I get this all the time where, I talk about something and they drop countless feats of this character doing this. And unlike him, I don't mind checking out the feats to see the validity of the feats. Not saying that I'm just assuming that everybody's lying, but I like to see it for myself. And the most annoying thing is they give out these feats, but they cannot give any direct links or what's that term called you do in writing? I forgot, but basically anything that links the feat to a story. So like I've asked them like, oh, which comic book issue was this? What was the name of the issue? They're like, oh, I don't know, but I just give you that random feat. So you're giving me random ass feats, but you're not going to give me the actual like stories where I can go check it out. There's no pointless to do that at that point. But also he's talking about the fact that he told them not to do it because it's pointless because all his feats don't really matter because I get what he means. He means that those feats don't pertain to fighting in general. They're mainly about, just him accomplishing like amazing goals like going this fast or lifting up this insane amount of weight, which doesn't really correlate to fighting, which I'll get into that. But yeah, here's the thing about people. You can make an entire video an hour or over an hour long, very well in depth, very intelligent, very thought provoking, and still you'll find idiots in the comment section who did not watch the video or were not properly listening and came in there with their own biases and stuck with those biases so hardly that they could not accept any of your arguments, and then they just do whatever they wanted to. And I've dealt with this before where I had somebody when I was doing my Goku Black versus Reverse Flash video, I basically went to the points because there was a lot of argumentative points that people had for why Reverse Flash would beat Goku Black, and I was going through each point. I didn't go through all of them, but I went through most of them, and I was refuting them. And there was one guy who was keep on commenting a whole laundry list of like things, explaining it, all of his abilities and why it would Goku Black wouldn't be able to beat it, and he spammed it multiple times. And I told him, like, dude, most of the ones that used, obviously there were some that I didn't, but most of the ones that he stated, I already explained in the video. It's like the guy didn't even watch the video, so I had to make a response video to that, and I went through each one and had to refute each point. But that gets annoying as as a YouTuber when you have people that are supposed to be watching your videos who are either clearly not watching it at all or not paying attention, and they just write stupid things. So I can see where he can get a little more annoyed from there. Personally, I get a little aggressive about it because it's obnoxious to me that I made this whole video, I did all this work just for you to ignore it and go with your very bias that you already had before the video. And it's okay not to fully agree with my points, but to just ignore them and not refute them reasonably, it's annoying. But yeah, the feats don't really pertain to fighting. It's kind of like for me, it's like somebody saying, "Well, this person ran a mile and lifted up this much weight." That's not gonna really mean anything in a fight. Like if I'm supposed to be fighting somebody, like let's say professionally or regularly, I want to hear who they beat. How hard did they hit them? How fast of a technical fighter they are. I don't want to hear about oh, they're able to lift up this much weight and run this much in a mile. That doesn't do shit. That doesn't mean anything about the fight. Same thing with Superman. Just because he can fly super fast or lift up heavy objects is not going to help him out in a fight. So I don't like that. He also mentioned once again consistency. I also agree with that, but I do disagree with his argument right here, where he's talking about they're using real world science sometimes, and then they're ignoring it. And I kind of get where his point is coming from. He's like, well, how are you going to use like very analytical science and then be like, well, also this stuff that comes with that science that would contradict it, we're going to ignore that. But here's the thing, this is fiction, and I mentioned this before that when it comes to fictional work, you have some that are more realistic and more grounded, and the ones that are more real unrealistic. And comic books usually, like Marvel and DC, and in anime like Dragon Ball stuff, they're more on the unrealistic side. So I wouldn't expect it to be as scientifically accurate as something like like The Boys, which is supposed to be more grounded and realistic. So I expect some ridiculousness in there and some nonsensical science logic. But his argument is, well, you can't use real ones and they're not. But then also you need to realize that even in the most like ridiculous and fictional works of science fiction, there's still the way the writers work is they pick and choose the science that they use. They might have some scientific stuff that is true, but then ignore others, and that's not on the fans. That's on the writer themselves. So I disagree with him on that. For example, like the Flash. The Flash, he most of his what he does is scientifically they explain about the friction and running at the speed of light will generate an infinite mass if you have mass running at near the speed of light, but it ignores the fact that he would be burned up from the friction, all this other stuff. But the argument is the speed force sort of negates any. It takes physics when it comes to positives and it removes it when it comes to negative. But that's how the story writing works, and that's how I see it with it. So I don't see a problem with fans using scientific analysis and then also ignoring some science, because the comic books and manga and these writers do it themselves. That's how they do it. They basically pick and choose from science what they think fits and get rid of stuff that might ruin the story, because if they were as accurate as possible, like these characters go in outer space, when they by the time they come back to Earth, the Earth would have been progressed into the future. So every time they do a mission in space, come back, the Earth would have evolved significantly, because time would have gone faster on Earth and slower in space, especially due to they're moving at speeds of light and faster than that. So I don't really agree with him. Sorry, I hit something right here. I don't really agree with him on that argument, saying, well, you can't just pick and choose. Yes, they can. It's the writer. What really matters is what was written in the story, because even with that, you have to follow the science that they took in. Whatever science they took in, whatever is negative or positive, they have to keep, stick to it. Because now if they go past, ignore that, then they basically contradict their own writing. They built it up saying, hey, this scientific theory we agree with and we believe in our world. These other parts of it we're going to remove. But then if it contradicts the parts that they agree to, then that is contradictory, and we can, I guess, just throw it out completely. But I disagree with him on this point. But the other point about them bringing up the feats, I do agree with him on that.
So it's talking about some of those absurd feats, which I'd say don't matter, right? A lot of that you can throw out the window because it's not consistent with the base character, which base character is super strong, obviously. That's why this whole debate is happening. But some of these feats that people throw out, like he one-shot the source wall, and it's like that's a multiversal feat. It's like if Superman could punch with the force of a multiversal destructive power, how did he ever get beat up by Doomsday or something like that? And that's just a lot of like the respect thread problems, as people read a respect thread and think that that represents Superman's actual character. Which is why I wanted to bring up my own Superman disrespect thread, just to kind of prove a point here. So on one hand, you have Superman lifting the heavens and, one-shotting the source wall and 1 attosecond reaction speed. On the other hand, you have the Heroes in Crisis event where Harley Quinn gets a drop on Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman and fights them to a standstill. So 1 attosecond reaction speed, not fast enough to stop Harley Quinn. Or a lot of people brought up Injustice. How about whenever he got his...
I wanted to pause there because there's something in particular I want to talk about there, which I dealt with this problem a bit with other people mentioning it, and yes, I agree with him. That will make Superman look slow and weak. But the thing is, a lot of fans, they use these type of feats to argue why these street level characters will be faster than light. And I've heard it countless times. It's ridiculous to me that people really are taking seriously that a street level character, a character that's at most peak human levels of speed, and flexibility, not flexibility, reflexes, can be matching light speed because they're able to handle these characters. In my mind, it's more like, no, they're not that powerful. It's more like the powerful character they've nerfed and, made them more of a fodderized character so these weaker characters can have more of a reason to be able to handle them or go up against them. So they basically, for plot convenience. But the way I see it a lot, and I feel like some people might have think that towards him, and if he's watching this video, hopefully he is, he's probably not though, but if he does watch this video, I do want him to know this, that by using that argument, people are just going to say, instead of them assuming that Superman is weaker than, or slower than he actually is when it comes to fighting, they're going to just assume that Harley Quinn is, has somehow reflexes on the speed of light or some shit. It's just stupid. It's the dumbest argument when I hear people argue that street level characters can, dodge light and stuff. Like, what? Then why would it be impressive of these, superpowered beings and cosmic level beings are able to dodge light if even a regular street human can do the same shit? If they can power up that, then why are they that impressive? It's just dumb. So I definitely see his point there, but I do see some people making some dumb argument to counter that by saying, oh, she's just that fast. And yes, or they might say, oh, well, he was holding back. Yeah, you can say he's holding back, but still, like, she got the drop on him. Even if he's holding back, like, just because somebody holds back does not mean they should be getting their ass beat by everybody. Holding back means that you're not going to hurt them or overdo it, but you can still stop them with the reasonable amount of power. So with his reasonable amount of power, he should be still able to stop her and not hurt her seriously. Like, they act like when that means that they hold back, that means that the person just gives them the advantage. No, it means that they still have the advantage over them. It's just that they're not well above them because they're holding back. He also mentioned Doomsday. Some people might have said, well, that was when he was early on in his career and stuff. Death Battle said the same thing. For me personally, I don't agree with that because he was well in his mythos. When he fought him, he was already well known as a superhero. Lois Lane, he was dating her, and she knew who Superman was. They had he was there forever. He fought countless other villains. So he was further for a while. So I want to say this was one of his early years. Sorry for that. Some douchebags riding a motorcycle very loud. Yeah, sorry for that. But getting back into it, yeah, he's gonna go on that, and then he's gonna mention right here about Alfred and him beating up Superman in the Injustice comic book series, which I think is very important and interesting that he mentions this, and I like it. Though you can say as well, it's not from the main timeline.
Ass beat by Alfred the butler, who had a super serum. You're telling me that this badass master martial artist Superman, because that's another thing I'll talk about later, got his ass beat by the butler? Or how about whenever Superman got beat by Jonah Hex, a cowboy? Know what his powers are? Being a cowboy. Or how about whenever he got beat up by Batman? This 1 attosecond super fast reaction speed. He's multi-times faster than the speed of light, but gets punched in the face by a regular human moving at regular human speed. Or that time he got his ass beat by Venom in the crossover. Or how he gets shot by a kryptonite bullet. Even the 40s version of Superman was faster than a speeding bullet, yet he still gets shot. Or how about that time he was struggling to hold up a single helicopter that was falling out of the sky? And my point of this is not to say that Superman is not powerful. My point is to say certain writers can write the character in a way that is inconsistent with the core character. And I'm sure the Superman fans would happily say that all these instances I just brought up should not be counted towards the character, right? Like, they don't count. Those don't count, right? We shouldn't consider that his actual reaction speed and his actual power level. Of course not. I'm saying the same thing with those high feats that are also inconsistent with the core character.
Okay, so that was cool. I like how you mentioned that. He also made fun of him saying he got beaten up. He's supposed to be an expert martial artist. Some people were saying that. I did hear one of the guys that I told you, the guy that was a Superman fan. I don't have any beef with him. I think he was pretty cool and chill dude. I respected, how he responded to me. But he mentioned, oh, well, he was trained by Batman and all this other stuff. It doesn't matter. On paper, it sounds nice, but when we see what he's capable of in the actual fights, he doesn't showcase that skill, especially consistently. He got beaten by Alfred, and Alfred didn't just take a super serum thing. It was a Kryptonian Lex has used it before, but it was basically a Kryptonian DNA to give him like Superman powers for like I think a day or maybe an hour, and he used that, and he basically was as strong as a Kryptonian and was able to whoop Superman's ass. So he fought somebody that was like on his level of power, but this guy knew how to fight and completely dog washed him. And here's the thing, Alfred, he has a combat skills because he was in the military, but he was like a medical doctor there. So he does have some combat training, but still, compared to Goku, that's nowhere near it. So he could, throw hands with him and beat the shit out of him. Goku, he definitely cannot contest with at all then, because Goku's way more skilled than, Alfred will ever be. So the fact that Alfred was able to beat him up, and yes, some of you guys say, well, he was equivalent to his power, but still, Goku, I do think Goku's stronger than Superman, but if you want to say Goku's weaker than him, he's not that much weaker than him, and with his skill is way better than, Alfred, so he should be able to beat him. And he used countless other feats where he got shot with bullets. Somebody tried to argue a couple of his points, which he, counted back against them, and I want to go on that too. One guy was keep on mentioning it multiple times and trying to refute all of his argument points, saying, oh, well, those bullets that hit him were their kryptonite bullets, but his argument was, well, he can move faster than a speeding bullet, so even if it's kryptonite bullets, he should be able to dodge it. I 100% agree. That's the same problem I had with Goku when people were talking about, Goku got shot by the robber, and people were making excuses for why Goku got hit. Oh, he lowered his power down, he didn't want to hurt them. But it's like, okay, here's the thing. Why would he lower his power so low where he can get hurt by a bullet, one, and two, where he's slow enough where a bullet could hit him? He should still be fast enough to dodge it. So using this whole argument about, oh, he's putting his guard down or whatever, or controlling himself, why would he control himself to get hit by a bullet or something that can hurt him? Still, this should be fast enough to dodge that bullet, so he should have been able to dodge it. That's 100% true. The kryptonite bullet hurting him, it makes sense why it hurts him, but him not being able to, react to it and dodge it in time, that does not, unless he's not that, combatively, fast in a fight. And then he mentioned also the poison ivy one, where Batman was able to get licks off of him and stuff in the fight, and he's done it before multiple times. Yes, you can say Superman is holding back because he doesn't want to hurt him, but still, once again, why would you hold back so much where the opponent can hurt you? Because Batman was beating the shit out of Superman in that when they got older and stuff, and he also was getting beaten up by Batman when he was controlled by poison ivy. Which, like, if your goal is to beat him, you don't have to use so much power you can kill him. You can still use your power to protect yourself and stop him without it. It's just stupid. It makes no sense, that argument. But the guy's argument was, once again, against Noble was, oh, well, Superman was subconsciously suppressing himself to be weaker so he didn't hurt Batman. Bullshit. He was completely mind controlled by a poison ivy. Why would a controlled, Superman that's out to kill and hurt Batman, hold back? He wouldn't be holding back at all. It makes no sense. That is just BS. That's crap. Completely. Also, I forgot to mention, he stated that Doomsday beating up Superman, if Superman had, multiversal level of strength, and how was he able to hurt him? And some people might be saying, well, Doomsday was holding back his strength. Why would he? He's a monster that's out for destruction. He should not. He was not even showing planet level destroying attacks. So why would he be, multiversal level, and consistency is important. It is key. Once again, sorry for that this car coming in and by, but he talked about that, and I think he's going to get into the whole fighting aspect right now. But before we get into that, I do want to talk about the high end, low end feat or outlier thing I want to mention. Now, there is a thing called, people keep on talking about, outliers. There's two things I call outliers: high end and low end. Now, low end is basically the outliers where it make the characters look weaker than they actually are, whereas high end outliers make the characters look more powerful than they actually are. Now, the way an outlier works is basically think of a line and there's dots in it. Each of these dots might go outside this line range, but they still stay consistently within that range. And then the outliers are the ones that are completely off of that range, that are either above or below. And the ones that are above are basically considered high-end outliers, and the ones completely below are considered low-end outliers. Sorry for the cut. I was just trying to wait, but the guy's still here. But that's going to be, low-end, what's it called? Outliers. And we see this all the time in Dragon Ball. I mentioned in Dragon Ball Super how they've had so many low-end outliers where they made them look weak. But the thing about Superman fans is, and he was arguing right there, was they only take in consideration the high end outliers and consider that as a part of Superman's accomplishments and feats. But when it comes to low end ones, they ignore that. Now, personally, for me, I would ignore these outliers, but not just the low end ones, the high end and low end ones. So if I see Goku doing some insane feat, impressive feat, I'm not going to count that in if it's not consistent. Just like I would not count in the ridiculous feats that make him look weak because it's not consistent, and it muddles up the analysis and analyzing who would win in the fight and their statistics, because it's going to be so out of range. Then it's not consistent at all. And that's what he's saying right here, right now. He's saying that, the Superman fans, they only take the high-end ones because it makes them look powerful, and then they ignore the low-end ones. And it is biased. It showcases that if you really want to make an honest, debate about this, you can't just say, hey, these are the crazy feats that he did, but then when he has the bad feats, like, nope, that doesn't count. You have to either count them all in or don't count any of them in. I'd rather have none of them because it makes it more consistent and more reasonable, but if you're going to do it, at least count them both in. You can't just say, well, Superman's done this ridiculous ass shit that doesn't consistently, make sense or stick around, but these ones that don't make sense, that make him look weak, we're just going to ignore that. They do that all the time, but unless if it's a character that they don't like or against, like Goku or Dragon Ball characters, they're gonna be like, oh, we're gonna use the low end, outliers and say those. Oh, so you count the low end outliers when it's against, the opponent, but when it's the person that or the character that you like, you're only gonna accept the high end ones and ignore the low end ones. So it shows a bias in their argumentative points. You accept only the top tier feats from Superman and ignore the bottom tier ones. And when you're calling out the opponent, you only point at the bottom tiered ones and don't talk about the top tier ones, and that becomes very disingenuous, and it's pointless to make debates with people like that. So I do respect that he mentions that. I think that's a very important topic to talk about.
Another point that was often brought up was my analogy of skill beating strength, and a lot of people would say, like, well, even the most skilled fighter on Earth would get torn apart by a silverback gorilla, which is true, fair point, except I don't think that this is the reality of the Goku v Superman debate. I don't think Superman is that far ahead of Goku in terms of power. I mean, Goku is consistently shown to be universal, multiversal in power. I think that the disconnect may happen because of how feats are favored and shown in comics. A lot of time it's like a strength feat or a speed or something like that, where with Dragon Ball Z it's usually some martial arts feat or like shooting a laser beam, and a lot of it comes from training, right? So it's like they train so hard that they're now at this power level, something like that. And the characters seem a lot more vulnerable, I'd guess, because they both take a lot more damage. And in Superman comics, typically it's not quite the same. Where like in Dragon Ball Z, their clothes are getting torn off, they're getting scratched and bloody and da-da-da-da. And you don't see that quite the same, I don't think, in Superman comics. Plus, I think Superman may appear stronger, typically, because it is just throwing big, heavy punches back and forth. And so that might have the appearance of having way more weight and gravitas than, like, throwing 100 punches and kicks like they do in Dragon Ball Z. It may just come across that they're a lot less powerful, even though I think the power levels are a lot more comparable than maybe some people want to give it credit for. And this is all not to mention the fact that strength means different things for comics and anime, which is pretty self-evident. Like if someone describes a strong character in comics, that's not the same as saying a strong character in anime, and I think that's really because of how they rank their feats and what's important to their characters. So Superman's strength comes from lifting strength, right? That's what his feats are. It's him lifting heavy stuff. But when they say Goku is strong, or you talk about Goku's strength, it's really just more of a general power, right? So Goku doesn't have the lifting strength that Superman has, and Superman is no doubt physically stronger, but when it comes to power level, I don't think those two can be equated quite the same way, because Goku consistently multiversal, universal at the very least. Say in Super Saiyan Blue form, he can do Kaioken, instantly get 10 times stronger. And talking about reaction speed, the 1 attosecond reaction speed, well, to Goku's points, he's got his reaction speed feats of responding to hit, who's literally skipping through time. So, I just wanted to get that out of the way. Another big one that I kind of mentioned was the number of comments. This may have been number one, the number of comments of people who said, actually, Superman is a master martial artist. Superman knows such and such forms of Kryptonian martial arts, and he...
Okay, so he talked about right there with the the feats and how they're showcased. I did a video about this about how like Western comics and manga, they're differently, like the way they interpret it. In the West, they're more based off of like strength as just physical acclimates of like lifting heavy things or running a great distance, whereas in anime it's more always connected to martial arts and fighting. It's this character was able to destroy this by punching or kicking it. This character was able to zip this fast in a fight, going back and forth, being so fast that they go out of the human eye. So those feats are morely pertain to fighting, whereas the other ones are just big feats in general. And you see this in sports and combat sports in general. Combat sports is different than other sports. Other sports, being athletic could mean just being really fast, having good hands, having a good jump, being very good, having good hand and eye coordination, and it can correlate with combat combat sports. But the difference between combat sports and that is the athleticism is different. And in football, basketball, these other sports, you need speed, you need running, you need to catch hands. In that, you do not really need that. A lot of UFC fighters are not technically athletic. They are athletic in fighting, but they're not athletic in other sports. Why? Because they're not training the same way. Each sport has their own way you train and the way you do it. Some are a little more closer to each other. If you play a lot of sports, you notice the difference between them. Even in combat sports, if you do like wrestling compared to boxing, or compared to just pure MMA or judo or whatever, you're gonna feel the difference of how those movements work and stuff like that. And you hear a term a lot in combat sports where like this guy's athletic. They mention they're athletic, but that doesn't mean that they're good fighters. That just means that it could help out. It could give them a benefit in a hand-to-hand fight, but it isn't a guarantee. Just because somebody's good at football doesn't mean they're going to be good at hand-to-hand fighting. And there's been crossover between football players going into fighting, and some of them have done pretty well. But even then, they aren't the best of the best martial artists. The best of the best are ones that just do martial arts. They're athletic in that capacity. And you see the same thing with movie martial artists, where they're very they're very flexible. They're very athletic. They have they can do a bunch of backflips. They're very gymnastic and very they have like very good gymnastic skills, but that doesn't really correlate very well for fighting, because fighting is more like less flashy and more straightforward, and that's the difference. So the feats that they showcase usually for Superman is him lifting something heavy, but that's not going to mean anything in a fight. It's like saying, well, this strong man did this and accomplished this great feat of strength. That means they must be really dangerous in a fight. They can be, but that's not always a 100% correlation. There's a complete difference there. Somebody showcasing how much they lift is not going to correlate to how hard they can hit. You can ask anybody in the fitness industry and fighters in general that are honest with you, they're going to say the same thing. So I do agree with that, and I like that. Now he's going to get into the martial arts aspect, which I thought was kind of interesting to see.
Was trained by Batman. He's trained by Wonder Woman. Superman is a master martial artist, if you didn't know. And, of course, I know that. I know he was trained by Batman and Wildcat and yada yada. But here's the thing. Just because it says in the comic Superman is a master martial artist doesn't mean he actually is. Because if he's never once even shown a little bit that he's a master martial artist, then it doesn't matter what they say. Superman has never one time, ever in the comics, exhibited a skill in martial arts that's anywhere comparable to somebody like Goku. He's never had a fight like Goku. The fight that people imagine in their head of the Goku v Superman, of the 1 attosecond reaction speed master martial artist, that fight that they're imagining has never occurred ever in Superman's history. He has never fought like that. But on the Goku side, Goku would fight like he fights every time he fights. But in the Superman team, it's a delusion. You're deluding yourself to think that that's how he would act. Because this isn't just power set v power set. This is Superman versus Goku, character v character. And Superman has never behaved like that before. And if Superman was this master martial artist, I would say, why did he get killed by Doomsday, right? Why didn't he use his Kryptonian taijutsu, Kryptonian taekwondo, whatever, and just, subdue Doomsday? Why did he just trade blows back and forth like he does every single time he fights? I don't know if I've ever seen Superman, throw a kick before.
Yeah, and this is interesting because I did see they had a recent, not that recent, but it was an animated film where they redid the Death of Superman film. The original one was a lot better, but they redid it, and there's people in the comment section, I saw it, and somebody mentions man, see, if Superman knew how to do martial arts, he would have been able to, handle Doomsday a lot better and beat him without dying. And someone's like, what is martial arts going to do? Pressure points is not going to work on this guy. He doesn't have any organs. And it's like, are you stupid? That's not martial arts. And to think that martial arts is just hitting pressure points is dumb. There is very, very important things that you can use in martial arts to help you out, especially against an opponent that's stronger than you. And he's right here, because people's argument is usually, well, Superman doesn't need to use that martial arts because he can just use his strength. Yeah, that's against certain characters that he can beat, but there's a lot of characters that are stronger than him or as strong as him, and he struggles, and the best way to, handle the situation would be to use his martial arts skills in those situations, but he does not. Why? Because he does not have them. If he really had them, and you're against an opponent that's stronger than you or strong as you would need the best possible options to win that fight, right? And the best way is to know how to fight. Against regular people or people that are way weaker than you, obviously you could just use your powers and not need to use your actual skill. But if you're against powerful foes, then using your skill would give you that leg up to beat them, especially against Doomsday, who was just, a brawlic monster. He should have been able to do it, but he did basic strikes. He was still fighting normally. He wasn't fighting any, different. And he could have, handled Doomsday better, and by, those guys are saying, oh, well, it's just pressure points, so how's this going to help out? Here's how it's going to help out. Doomsday throws a punch, he reads his movements, is able to know what he's going to throw, and he's able to not only block it in time, so it minimizes damage, or, evade it and, dodge, or counter strike him so he can get hit with more power. So there's many things you can do in a fight if you know how to fight. It's not just, I hit him with pressure points and I beat him. He could have literally dodged most of, Doomsday's attacks, or blocked it and reduced the damage, or, countered him by hitting him with a counter hit, which would have hit him with more power and hurt him more. And that would have given Superman the victory, but he didn't have that. Every fight you've seen, and like you mentioned in the comics, you don't see that at all. He's always fighting just regularly. And I like how he showed Batman beat him up, because Batman, outclassed him even with just having a mech suit. He's able to, throw hands and hit him. But, he said one thing particular that really, really I respected and really liked and caught my mind was the fact that he said the fight that people are envisioning in their mind where Superman's moving in an attosecond doing all martial arts is not going to exist and will never exist. It's never been shown in the comics, and if they were ever to fight, that would never happen. And I do think this is on par to blame on Death Battle. When Death Battle did their fight between Goku versus Superman, and they did the animated showcase of the fight, they had Superman fighting literally like a Dragon Ball Z character. I literally mentioned it. He was blocking, he was deflecting, he was dodging, he was doing many different things that he's never done before in a fight. Usually Superman throws a couple of haymakers, maybe might do a couple of throws, but usually it's basic ass fighting style, just big haymakers and stuff like that. So yeah, I do agree with him on that, and I do think it's Death Battle's fault because they did draw it. And I know people say, well, the animation they put there is not to be taken seriously, whatever. But still, people look at it like, oh, Superman could go back and forth with Goku. No, he would not. Here's how it would go: if Superman's fighting him, Superman would just try to overpower him and just throw heavy shots, whereas Goku would be doing technical fighting and try to analyze him. And Superman's swings would be wide, slow, and powerful, whereas Goku's attacks would be more, quicker, more faster, more like tight, and it might not hit as hard if some people might want to argue that, but it'll be more direct. I do think it's going to hit harder because I don't see Superman on universal or multiversal levels of strength, but yeah, he would be able to, just dodge him and hit him, and I don't see Superman being able to do that at all. I think that's just a fantasy that a lot of people conjured up in their mind, like, well, he can do this. Have you ever seen him fight like that? The most he does is some basic pressure points, but like, it's low level like stuff compared to what Goku has done. And he's shown clips from Dragon Ball. You just see Goku like dodging like this, blocking like this. You don't see Superman ever do that. I don't see him doing some acrobatic shit or some perfect dodging or blocking or whatever. And also, one thing people should understand is blocking is also very important because people say, well, this character is this durable, that durable, but in in most other fiction, but especially in Dragon Ball, if a character blocks, they can reduce that damage. So even if Goku is not as durable as Superman, the fact that he is a really great martial artist and has good timing in blocking, he could block a lot of his attacks and either parry it or block it and minimize the damage. So even if he is not as durable, by him blocking, he would minimize the damage, as he's shown before that blocking does help out significantly.
All he does is trade blows, and I saw some people say like, well, he just doesn't use his martial arts because he never has to. And it's like, look, I'm glad that's your personal headcanon for why this happens, but the truth is, you can't just say that someone has this ability and expect me to believe it when he's never used it. That's like if somebody said, like a writer came out and said, yeah, Batman has the ability to fly. He's actually always had the ability to fly. Batman can fly. It's canon. But then every time Batman falls off a building, he uses his grappling hook and swings around. You wouldn't still look at me and say, oh yeah, Batman can fly. Like in a debate, you wouldn't say, oh yeah, Batman has power of flight and he can da-da-da. Just because it's been said but never shown. Okay? And if you pull up some screen cap of Superman like blocking a punch and punching someone back, and being like, well, this is him using his martial arts. It's like, no. He doesn't fight like Goku fights. He doesn't fight like actual martial arts. And whenever he is in a combat sport, he loses, like when he lost against Muhammad Ali. Who Muhammad Ali is a master boxer, but nowhere near a master martial artist, right? Like, I don't think you would put him on the scale of like Batman. Like, you'd think someone trained by Batman and Wonder Woman and da-da-da could take out Muhammad Ali, but I guess not. Yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to address, a few of these main points. And I wanted to say to the comic book fans out there, when it comes to somebody like Goku, yeah, there's one timeline, right? It's easy. You see where he started, you see where he's at now. It's a lot easier to debate with that character because they are a lot more consistent, just kind of heading in this upward power level trend. But for Superman fans, you can't get sucked in to like just reporting on his top 5 feats that are totally inconsistent with the rest of the character and pretending like that's how the character is all the time. That's just not how this works. The actual consistent character, issue-to-issue character Superman, versus the issue-to-issue character of Goku, Goku obviously wins. Because I want to reiterate, the way that you right now are imagining in your head this fight going has never happened before, ever. The way you're imagining Superman fight, and the way that you argue in the comment section of how Superman would win the fight, he has never ever done even a single time. So maybe think about that.
So that was Noble Comics video on I listened to Goku versus Superman debate part 2, the response to his original video. I think it was very very great. He had many points that he touched upon. There's only I think one that I disagreed with, but the rest I really agreed with. And this is stuff that I mentioned on my channel countless times before. So I do appreciate that there's somebody else saying it too, because it does get annoying when I see people going with the same logic, and it's a flawed logic too, and they keep on going with it. And there's more to it, and they just don't think more beyond that because they have one preconceived notion and they want to be stuck with that. So I do like how he did that, and I respect him for doing that. And it was a really great video. I do like the points that we especially talked about, the consistency, Superman, how he fights. I don't know towards the end how to stop it, because I wanted to just talk to you guys about the video as a whole. But he went back on and talked again about his the way you guys imagine in your head how Superman would fight Goku is not how it will go out at all, which is true. Superman will not be doing that shit. The things that you think of is basically DBZ version of Superman, where he's throwing hands and dodging and stuff like that. He doesn't do that. He doesn't bob and weave. He's not doing any of that crazy technical fighting like Goku is. So it's not going to go exactly like that at all. Let's be honest. Realistically, Superman is going to go for power shots and try to overpower him, and Goku's going to try to beat him technically and use all of his martial arts against him. So it's going to be a completely different fight. And I don't agree Superman would beat him even in power-wise, because there's nothing that indicates that he's universal or multiversal. But I do think it's interesting. Also, big shout outs to the guy, man. This guy's channel blew up like crazy. Like I said before, he was only over 200 subscribers. Now he has over 1,000. It's just amazing. Big props to him. For me personally, I'm kind of a little disappointed because I wish I could get up there, because I've only been doing YouTube for a year, but when I see people surpass me like this easily, because I've seen other channels that have recently been uploading been created and uploading, and how fast they've grown, it's makes me a little disappointed. But this just means I need to work harder and improve my videos, and maybe push myself a little more to get you guys to subscribe. So but to all the guys that have subscribed, big thank you to you guys. It means a lot. I just wish I had more. Obviously I want to make this a career, and I need at least 1,000 subscribers to make that happen. So I guess I'm going to be on my road to 1,000. But like I said, I like this video. I think it was really great. I still do think he had people disagreeing with him anyway. He's not gonna change people's minds completely, but at least this is on the right direction. I also want to say before I leave or end this video that I've been looking at my channel, and my biggest video on my channel, or what it was before that made my channel blow up in the beginning, was my Goku versus Superman death battle analysis video, where I was debunking that video, and I've got over 900 views on that. And now I have videos that have more than 1,000, but that was my first video that made that many views, that made it into the hundreds, that blew up, that made my channel bigger. And without it, it wouldn't have gotten as big as it has. But I do look at it in a negative light, that video, and my Goku vs Superman 2 video. Not because I thought my points were bad, just how I made the video. At that time, I was new to YouTube. I didn't know what good software to get for editing. I didn't know the techniques very well. I was using OBS, and it was very glitchy. I didn't know it at that time, and it was cutting in and out. So I do feel like the production quality of those two videos were lacking. The content and what I was explaining it, I still do think is top tier, and I hold that in high regard, but I do think the quality is low, and I have improved significantly. So I will be making remaking both of those videos, the part 1 and 2 of the death battle Goku vs Superman. So if you guys see, just know that I redone it, and it was simply because the originals were not that great. So if you guys want to check that out again, see my analysis on it, a more full depth analysis, just know I'll be dropping that out. You guys can come and check it out. So yeah, I really enjoyed this video, but this is it for today. I will try to do those videos maybe in a couple of days. I don't know if I have enough time for my schedule. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and stay tuned for next time.